I'm very excited to welcome with us this evening for Kiwanis Let's Talk, Bryce Kinder. Bryce is community is a staff member at Kiwanis International. He is the manager of member services for Kiwanis International, a team which he's held various positions with his start with the organization. He started with Kiwanis International in 2002. Bryce is committed to supporting members and club leaders in their efforts to impact their communities in the name of Kiwanis. He currently serves as the club treasurer for his home club, the Kiwanis Club of Indy. It's 5 o'clock somewhere in Indianapolis, Indiana, and also engages his community through his local church. Bryce and his wife, Bobby, have one college-age daughter. And Bryce, as we talked about, we've done this presentation on a Saturday. Bryce is going to share with us a little bit about member services and who they are and what they do, and talk about the commitment that those people that answer that phone in Indianapolis, the commitment that they have, even though over the last 15, 16 months, they've been working from home. So Bryce, I'm going to turn it over to you and we'll answer questions. You're welcome to put questions in the chat. We'll answer questions towards the end. And he should be able to share his screen.
Yep. Well, I appreciate it, Sue. Thanks for the warm welcome. I see a lot of names and faces of folks that I've gotten the pleasure of working with over the years, and so that is exciting to see, and certainly makes me much more comfortable. But as Sue said, really, kind of my hope is to let you know, if you don't, that there is a staff of member service representatives that are stationed within the office, either remotely or physically in the office, that are there to, and their sole purpose is really just to be there to help support members and leaders in the various needs that they have to do the important work that they need to do in the field. There's obviously a lot that goes into club leadership, membership itself, district leadership, and the different volunteer roles that folks find themselves in Kiwanis. And so all of those roles have administrative needs and things like that. And so really our purpose is to kind of make life as easy as possible for folks when they're serving in those volunteer opportunities. So I will go ahead and share my screen here. And I just use this kind of won't give you a ton of facts or anything like that. So we'll try to answer questions and have this be as participatory as possible. But I did want to just give you a little background in regards to member services. So I usually like to start off with this quote from this individual. If anybody knows who this individual is, kudos to you, but no one is useless in this world who lightens the burdens of another. And so that's a saying or a quote from Charles Dickens, and that's a phrase that that really resonates with me. The point of that is that we want you to know that the Kiwanis International Office and member services especially staffed with individuals that are committed and have a desire to really help Kiwanis volunteers, and to make sure that that you can do the amazing work that's done out in the field while trying to make life a little bit easier for you. I always find it very telling that I would say probably 80 or 90% of our staff are Kiwanis members themselves, and so I think that goes to show that supporting Kiwanis members as an employee is not just a vocation. It's really something that people feel passionate about, and so that's why they've gotten involved in that way as well. So I feel like we're driven as part of that. Just a little bit about member services. The member services staff is a small staff. It's made up of 6 member service representatives, individuals that if you've called into the office before, you've probably spoken with them time and again. And we really work as kind of a call center area. We receive incoming phone calls and emails in a variety of different channels, and we handle a kind of a variety of different things as part of that. So along with the member service representatives, we have our club processing representative, Renee Booker. I know many of you have worked with Renee in the past. Renee's been with the organization for, I think she's coming on 17 years now. So she's been with the organization for quite some time. But you know, all of our team are really individuals that are member facing. Member services is part of a larger group, the global membership group. Brad, I see you on the call, and so Brad's part of our larger team, and that makes sense because, again, probably out of much of the office staff, where the membership team and member services are the ones who interact with members out in the field most often, and so there's a lot that kind of cross-pollinates between us as part of that. So, you know, I know many of you probably know this and have had a chance to kind of take the opportunity to have member services help you, or the office staff. But when, you know, I think of, or when people ask what member services can help with, again, we kind of handle a variety of different things because of the nature of our department and what we're asked to do, to kind of serve as an info central information place. And our extension is 411, so it's very apt. You know, when you call 411 for the phone company, I think they have 411 still if you call. I'm not quite sure in this day and age, but 411 used to be information, and so and we kind of consider ourselves that way. But when I think of kind of the things that we cover most of all, I think of resources that we can help you find or provide to you, supplies or merchandise, and then information. And the information part is most key, and that's probably what we'll spend most of our time on tonight. But I think of those three things kind of as the breakdown as part of it. So I wonder if there's anybody, maybe we can kind of break for just a minute here. Is there anybody that has had an interaction with member services, maybe in the last, I don't know, week or so? Have they had anybody that's had a chance to call into member services and really had some interaction with them that maybe you'd like to share with the group? And it can be good or bad. I mean, any feedback is good feedback. So, you know, if it's bad feedback, I want to know about it, even if it puts me on the hot seat a little bit. But Barb, I see your hand raised. Would you mind to kind of share with us what you've experienced?
I don't mind at all. I probably deserve an award as the one that uses member services the most. But this week, last week, we had a corporate member change who the representative was. And I did know that I couldn't do that myself. So I sent an email in, and I received an email back that said, this will be taken care of within 48 hours. And of course, it was done the next day. So I didn't talk to anybody, but I was very pleased by the fast service and just how quickly it happened and very smoothly.
Thanks, Barb. Kathy, you had something you wanted to share?
Yes, member services really went the extra mile for us when we were preparing for our booth at Art Fair. And even though one of the member services was going on vacation, and this was right after the convention, she arranged to have literature and materials sent to us, which we got in time to display at our booth at Art Fair. It was fabulous.
Great. Well, it's
Nancy.
terrific to hear. Nancy, sorry, I didn't see the chat,
Okay.
but you had something?
Oh, I had to reset my password for lieutenant governors for next year. And not only did I have to call once, I had to call twice because my computer didn't like me, but member services took care of it for me.
Did you speak with a gentleman during that time, Nancy?
I did. His name was Kenneth.
Kenneth, yep, sure. I remember I think we tried to triage that together to figure out what was going
Yeah,
on.
it's
So,
kind of a mess, but it works now. So
well, I appreciate that feedback from everybody. Again, you know, those are obviously, it's great to hear, you know, that we've been able to help, and that's really the point. You know, our commitment and really our mission is to make sure that we're coming away from a phone call or an interaction by helping the members and the volunteers that call us, and that they have had a positive interaction, that we're handling that with professionalism, kindness, friendliness. You know, if that doesn't happen, or if folks don't feel that way when they come away from conversations, then we've failed that mission as part of that. And so I'm glad to hear those positive things. Again, you know, certainly we don't get it right all the time, and if that happens, we certainly want to know about it and get feedback about it. But I'm glad to know that we've been able to help some folks in the last week or two. So that's great to hear. So again, we talked about resources and supplies and information. And those are kind of the three main areas I think about. You know, resources, I've kind of put up here just a sampling of different resources, but there are lots of materials and documents and tools that Kiwanis creates as part of their support to clubs. You know, I'm sure Brad, when, you know, he's worked with folks maybe on this call or others that have been part of membership conversations, you know, they've introduced some of the items that we've created for recruitment purposes, whether it's the brochures that are shown on here, whether it's other auxiliary pieces that we offer through the family store, literature-wise, whether it's just informational tools that we provide on the website, or in different manners, different methods. You know, there are lots of resources that Kiwanis has set up for individuals. And so member services can oftentimes help you get connected to those pieces or find how to order that information, how to access it, or what it might be used for. One of the good things about member services is there's a lot of longevity in our group. The staff that we have, probably the least tenured staff member that we have within our team has been there for 5 years, and we have individuals that have been there for 20 plus years. As Sue said, I've been with the organization almost 20 years, and so we've learned, certainly just as you all have, you know, folks that have been involved with Kiwanis for a long time kind of remember the historical things and pieces, you know, that we used to offer and things like that. And so we kind of pride ourselves in being able to find, you know, access or help you access a lot of variable things as part of that. But there's lots of resources, not just brochures, but other items that you might find of use. And so, you know, if there's ever a time where you are wondering, is there something that kind of handles this, you know, give us a call and ask. You know, the worst case is we'll either not know ourselves, or we'll ask a staff member and maybe we'll find that we don't have something, but that oftentimes leads to a conversation of, well, what can, you know, be developed as part of that. So there's always value in having that conversation anyway.
Bryce,
Supplies. Oh, yep.
Bryce,
Sure.
this is Brad. I was just going to compliment your staff. I've had a number of times, particularly during the pandemic, where Tia and others on your crew, your team will call me just to verify information, or perhaps it's somebody that can't find something on the website and it's not always the easiest thing to navigate. And they always go that extra mile to try to chase down the right information and connect the dots. And that's, you know, I know there are some people that even when they're driving and they can't access their phone to find a telephone number or address or whatever, have even called member services. I don't know that you want to suggest that for all of the Kiwanis to do, but we'd rather have you be safe than sorry. So I guess that's an okay thing if you're on the roads.
Well, I appreciate that, Brad. And again, you know, part of it is just, you know, staff in the building serve as resources. You know, there are certainly times when there might be a club that's struggling, that needs some insight and some help, and member services kind of serves as a first step, kind of that, again, 411 that folks can call, and then we can get them in touch with an area director like Brad, or, you know, a staff member that can help them kind of triage and you know, troubleshoot what, you know, certain situations in there. So it's not just something, not just tangible physical things that we can help connect you to resources for. It's, you know, it's staff knowledge as well. And so I think that's an important part of it. So, but supplies, obviously, I think everybody on the call has been connected in Kiwanis for a while now, and so merchandise and Kiwanis swag and branded items is probably you know, a mainstay of your Kiwanis existence. But member services does help to support retail operations, and so if you have questions on merchandise items, or you have the need to place an order or help navigate through the family store, we're happy to help with that as well. The family store was recently updated within the last, I guess we're almost at a year now. And so we feel like it has a fresher design. It works a lot more like a traditional shopping experience. And we've brought new items to kind of go along with that. Graduation items is kind of pictured there. One of the items that we've really seen a ton of growth in. And so we know we're hopeful that once schools and graduations continue to kind of get back to where they were, if they do, that those items will become necessary. You know, it was really encouraging, even with a lot of schools still kind of closed this past summer, our graduation sales did very well. And so that's encouraging to see that Kiwanis clubs and high schools figured out some kind of way to do alternate recognition for their graduates as part of that. And so we're excited to be a part of that too, and try to help support clubs that need those types of materials. But again, the family store is out there. It's got a fresh new look and kind of interface. And so we hope that that'll be helpful to you. Biggest thing that I kind of want to talk about and what member services can help with is something that I think we all experience when we're trying to find information on time. This is kind of I use this as an illustration of what can happen to you when you try to go online to any website, but especially the Kiwanis website, where there's so much information, and trying to find details of things sometimes can make that clock just kind of spin and spin and spin. And so the point of that is, you know, I think the biggest thing that member services can help with is information. You know, a lot of times if you go online, again, there's so much information on the Kiwanis website, it can sometimes be hard. And Brad kind of alluded to that a little bit about finding that information. And so, you know, that's kind of one of the things we target the most is kind of being a clearinghouse for information, being a place for members and leaders to kind of start with and find out specific things, ask questions. And, you know, if we don't have the answers, again, we try to bird dog them for folks, or hunt them down for folks, or get members to the right spot as part of that. So maybe we can open it up again for a little sharing time. But is there a time recently or in the past where you've had difficulty finding a piece of information on the Kiwanis website that you'd like to share?
Hey, Bryce, this is Linda. One of the items that I used to use a lot, but we've done some things in the Michigan district now with onboarding, and I tend to use that information. But the PowerPoint that is available through International for orientation, and that really hides out there in the Kiwaniverse,
Sure, on the website.
And you guys were tremendously, Bryce, I think you actually sent me the direct link to the document when I couldn't find it. So thank you for that.
Sure. I know that, you know, kind of the theme of our website is not to post just static links that just kind of sit there right there themselves, but to actually kind of embed those links as part of an overall narrative that's on a page. So it might be talking about bringing in new members and how you induct members, and then as part of that text, it'll point to resources as part of that. And while I understand kind of the thinking behind that, I do agree, Linda, I think sometimes that might make it difficult to find those things. I don't know, Brad, if you've had others that have kind of run
I had
into
one during the
difficulty finding
pandemic.
that.
I had one during the pandemic. And again, I think you made this point earlier, but I'd like to really emphasize it, is the fact that, if Kiwanians have something that they think would help them or they're looking for or whatever, give one of us a holler. This was the instance of where somebody had called me about the strategic plan, formerly the I plan. And when I looked for it, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's not there on the website. And then I checked around and found that Executive Services had taken it down so they could update it, because the board added about a year and a half ago, the 5th component in terms of leadership development. And so that sort of jostled all of us to get together and make sure that we got the right information updated back up on the website and everything. So, don't hesitate to call us out if something's missing that you're looking for, or something that you think might help your clubs grow and flourish and everything. That really is a big help to us.
And I guess I should say, let me be clear. I think the Kiwanis website has made huge strides in the last 5 or so years from what it used to be. It used to be like drinking out of a fire hose in the old design itself. And now, obviously the website has to serve in 2 aspects. It has to serve as an introduction to the organization when individuals that have no connection to Kiwanis visit the site. And so it has to be, kind of clear and simplified for that. But also it has to serve as a repository for, a lot of information that members need. And so, I certainly don't minimize that kind of the balance that you have to play as part of it, but it can make it hard for, club leaders to kind of find information for that. And so, to Brad's point, I really hope that that folks will, rather than spend, a ton of time kind of hitting their head on the desk, after they've been searching for information for 30 or 40 minutes, that's not, we don't want you all to have to spend your time like that. If you spend a good 5 or 10 minutes, 15 at the most, and you can't find something, at that point, give us a call or email us and ask how you can find it. We'd much rather do the work and try to find that information for you, because it's probably something others have asked about. And so we might have that readily at our fingertips as part of that. So,
Bryce?
Yeah.
Bryce, I've
Right.
also heard some people say, well, it's a lot easier to just Google it. And while that's a resource, and I've used it myself when I'm in a parking lot somewhere and somebody comes up and says, oh, you're going to be inducting the officers tonight. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. So I better find the script or whatever. So I'll put in there. But the danger with that is that sometimes it pulls up something that was from 10 years ago that perhaps is out of date, or it's been customized to that district or to that division or club. And so you really need to be careful. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't use a Google search or whatever, but just be cautious that it's a current script that you're going from.
Absolutely right. I mean, again, you're right on the money, Brad, that, if you Google search something, you can find things that are stored within, somebody's kind of server environment that maybe hasn't been taken off. They've kind of hidden it from everybody to get into, but it's still out there as searchable. And sometimes you don't realize that's the case, especially if that's things that come, if it's something that's tied to something, I don't want to say uber important or anything, but if it's like, it has to do with like dues amounts or deadlines or things like that, things that really are kind of hard and fast pieces of information, you want to make sure that you have the most current up-to-date part. So that's certainly true. And again, that's what we kind of pride ourselves on. We try to communicate within our team by sharing what we've learned and kind of, keeping in touch with each other, even when we've worked remote. We have a group post that we share information with and things. And so really we're hopeful that, everybody will kind of have the same knowledge base as everybody else in the group. So finding out how to navigate the website's the important part of what we can help with as well. Navigating the secretary dashboard's an important part. I imagine that a good portion of you have served as club officers in the past, if you're not one already, as you've risen kind of through the ranks. And so that's kind of an important mainstay of club activity as well. And so not everybody knows how to get around that or is well versed with that. And so we, we're there to help clubs figure out, whether it's a club leader or a district leader, we're there to help them figure out, where they might go to report their officers or update their members, submit their monthly reports, any of those things. And so, we work with that site almost daily. And so we feel like we can help you kind of figure out how to kind of navigate that space and how to do specific things as part of that. So we'll kind of take this opportunity to say that Kiwanis is in the midst of building out a brand new membership database, our customer relationship management system, which will take the place of our current membership database. And as part of that, when it launches sometime in 2022, the interface in to work with that database through club dashboards and things like that will change as part of that. And we're excited about that. The database will be built on the popular Salesforce platform, which is a very well-known and kind of industry leader. And so we think that we'll be able to leverage that to give clubs much better experience with working with their data in a variety of different ways. And so kind of keep your eye out for information on that. We have we plan on a robust education plan for rolling that out, but we're quite a bit away from when that will happen. So that's probably why a lot of you haven't heard of that as part of that. But Barb, you had a question or comment? Nope, I think you're muted, Barb.
Yes, I had two. One is, and I don't know if everybody knows this or not, but the club locator, if you have clubs that do not show up on the club locator, it's probably because member or whoever entered them didn't have the coordinates, the geographic coordinates. So whenever I come upon one of our clubs that's not in there, I always call member services, and they ask me questions that enable them to find it and put it in. So that's really helpful. And another thing, this is something that probably is not in your job description, but I was getting some products that were by a licensed vendor, and I didn't know that that's an iterative process between the vendor and Lauren Harp, or who else besides Lauren, approving, and they're making adjustments, and then she approves again. And I was on a time crunch, and member services found Lauren for me, and she gave them the okay to proceed with the product. So that was very helpful and way beyond probably your job description, but I really appreciated it.
I don't know. I think that probably fits right in our wheelhouse, Barb, as what I'd expect is kind of doing the things that you don't really know. I mean, as we do try to chase down answers quite a bit. So again, I'm glad to hear of that positive outcome, and certainly those are some of that's evidential of some of the things that we try to do as part of that. So at a certain point, I don't want to be unrealistic and say at a certain point there are things probably we're not able to help with, but I feel at least certain that we can either get you in touch with somebody that can help with that issue, or we can tell you why it's not possible, but we can give you alternatives as part of that. So,
and I also appreciate that you never make me feel stupid, even though I am. You and the rest of the staff always say, well, no, that would happen. And also evidently are able to judge the amount of panic in my voice about what I need. So thank you very much for being very good customer representatives.
We're only as skilled at knowing things because we deal with it day to day. So we certainly don't expect folks that don't get kind of the same questions, because that's really what it is that you're one person with that question, but we're hearing a lot of times those questions from multiple people, and so we get the benefit of seeing kind of a macro level of those responses. But anytime that we go away from an interaction having helped somebody, I think we're excited by that part of it, or we should be at least. Everybody has a bad day, so I guess maybe not as encouraged sometimes as others, but we certainly try to be. So, but again, more information will come out in the upcoming administrative year about the new database, and so stay tuned. We'll again, we're committed to educating folks on how to use that once it gets built out, but we're very early on in the process, so no worries. Nothing will change on the current dashboard really. So if you're familiar with the secretary dashboard or the district dashboard, those will remain the same through the first half at very least of 21-22. So I'm sure that besides your Kiwanis lives and your Kiwanis roles, that a good portion of you have connection to your service leadership clubs as well, whether that's sponsoring a club or whether that's building a new club or starting a new club in your communities. And so, you know, as staff, we're situated to help clubs get started or answer questions. As I kind of alluded to, this past year was really had an exceptional impact on the SLP program because they were uniquely situated not to be able to operate a lot of times. And so lots of questions and concerns coming in from schools and clubs on, you know, how they were going to be able to maybe you know, lay low or kind of step back during the last year, but perhaps come on stronger in the starting year. And so so we have staff obviously here that can help direct and help answer questions. I know that the service leadership team is working on the homecoming program. I don't know if they've presented on here before or if they've shared information as part of that, but you'll see more details of that program forthcoming. Homecoming 2021s are our efforts to kind of get SLP clubs and key clubs specifically reconnected as part of the organization and re-engaged. And so we don't want to let those clubs slip away as part of that. And so, but we certainly can help with building new clubs and answering questions about administering, you know, existing clubs and things like that. So definitely want to be able to support those organizations as well. Governance questions are certainly things that come up. You know, obviously clubs have their own policies, but there's also the standard form. And a lot of times we get questions about how those are interpreted or how clubs deal with a certain aspect of their bylaws. Maybe something comes up from a standpoint of, you know, an issue where the bylaws need to speak to that. And so we can help kind of navigate those documents as well. Renee is kind of our primary source for answering questions about the club governance. And then Diana O'Brien is a staff member that handles district governance and international governance. Diana is not part of our team, but she definitely, we work very closely with her because those kind of two issues kind of cross-pollinate as well. So, and I know a lot of you have worked with Diana in the past. I'm gonna perhaps sneeze here real quick. I don't know if I'm going to, but the lights maybe will stop me from doing it. But if I mute myself, it's only to sneeze. But yes, Diana and Renee can both help with governance issues. So I want to take kind of this final period of time, both to allow some questions, but kind of give you an idea of some of the common questions that member services gets on a day-to-day basis. And so I picked these just because they're really kind of indicative of kind of the common consistent questions we get kind of in our day-to-day lives. But a lot of times we get, why can I log into Kiwanis Connect, or why don't I see the appropriate abilities for my role when I log in? Nancy, you talked about having to have your password reset. I think that was probably on the learning management system for maybe lieutenant governor training, or lieutenant governor elect training, or Amplify maybe. But getting into a Kiwanis Connect, which is the reporting site, a lot of times people have difficulty with that. And just a couple of points about that is that every Kiwanis member has the ability to log into the Kiwanis reporting website. As an active member, you have a profile already set up in the website. You access that profile by logging into Kiwanis Connect with your email address, and that's the email address that's on file with Kiwanis. So if you have multiple email addresses, that you use for various things. You'll want to use the one that you have recorded with Kiwanis International. We can always confirm what that is, or if you need it changed, we can change it to something, to an alternative one, but that's the email address you'll want to use. And then you use a password that you log in with, and you can create that password to make it whatever you'd like. But anybody should be able to log into Kiwanis Connect, but the office or the role, volunteer role that you have will determine what access or what abilities you see when you log in. So if you're recorded as a club president or secretary in our database, then when you log in, you'll see the proper access that you should have to your club dashboard and things like that. If you're a lieutenant governor or a governor or a district secretary, when you log in, you'll be able to choose between your club role and your district role, and you'll see the abilities for that as well. So that'll determine that part of it. But again, if you try to log in and you're not able to, again, don't spend a ton of time. If you're not able to kind of triage it, within 5 or 10 minutes yourself, reach out to us and we're happy to help. That's a very common thing that we can help with as part of that. Question number 2 is, why do I have to submit all these reports? It seems like, Kiwanis Life sometimes in certain seasons of the year kind of are just made up of reports themselves. And so, Kiwanis International, and I think the districts have done a good job of trying to reduce the number of reports and reporting that we ask clubs to do. But, some of the reports are very helpful and help us determine how we can support clubs. Monthly reports have been something, obviously that's a piece that clubs, do very regularly. And, in the past, we've had a very low participation rate in that. At one point we only had 30-some% of our clubs were filling out their monthly reports, which is, any data you get from only 30% of clubs is not going to be very representative of the organization itself. So we've made some changes to the monthly reports over the last couple of years. We've gotten that number up to the mid-60s, which is, a great improvement, but we're certainly not where we need to be on that. But the data that's given on those reports, it's given on the annual reports. Obviously, the information that's sent in for your officers for the new year, things of that nature, that data goes directly to drive decisions and actions that happen as part of that. If a club doesn't submit their officers for the new year, which again, we're right in kind of the middle of that time period, clubs submitting those officers, their incoming officers aren't going to receive the communications they need to receive as an officer. They're not going to be able to access the website and have the right abilities as a club officer. So that's very important. Just like Barb talked about, if a club doesn't update its meeting place, then the data that's shown for a club on the club locator feature on the Kiwanis website is not going to be accurate. And so if you have visitors or prospective members that want to connect with the club, they're not going to be able to do that as effectively. Monthly reports, the data that's submitted on monthly reports is important because a lot of that goes to drive programs and different initiatives that are developed as part of that. We use feedback in regards to what partners are used, attendance and things of that nature, how often clubs are being visited and things like that. So there's a lot of data that we take out of that. I think we've looked at our reports over the past years in a way to say, what are we going to do with this data? Because if we're not going to do anything with this data, we shouldn't ask those kind of questions. So Greg, I think you were part of a team a couple of years ago to make some changes to the monthly report. Is that right? I think you had some input on that part of it.
Yeah, that's true. And it leads to a question I have. And if this exists already, it's my fault for not being aware of it. One of the goals behind changing that was to be able to have clubs have information so that they could help market themselves better to the community based on what's going on around Kiwanis. Is there something out there that is like some information to clubs or tips or here's the reporting, here's how you can use it, and where to go get it to market your club to the community, saying, you know, as a Kiwanis, we do this much service and this is the effect we have. Is there something that we can get the clubs to direct them how to use that information better?
It's a great idea. I don't know that we've got anything necessarily developed from an education standpoint itself. And I think, you know, in talking about that, maybe we've identified maybe a strategy for increasing the use of the monthly reports itself. You know, you're exactly right. And one of the conversations we've had in the past is, you know, some of the custom questions that get asked on the monthly report that they're only asked, you know, within a particular month or whatnot. We talked about the fact that, you know, a lot of times when clubs answer those questions, they don't really see the result of what's come out of those questions. They don't see kind of how their answers kind of fall in line with other people that have answered that. And so that can a lot of times depress, you know, people's willingness to answer those questions because they just think they're kind of sending that information into a black hole and nobody's really doing anything with it. And so maybe that's an opportunity, Greg, for us to kind of highlight that or emphasize that in education going forward about how people can leverage, or clubs can leverage that, the monthly report to kind of get that, because you can get, obviously you yourself, you know, the club can pull data out of there, whether it's through the compilation report or whether it's the PDF copies of the reports. But I guess to answer your question, no, I don't know of a tool that's created yet that really kind of highlights that.
And I even for clubs that know the information's there, but just some ideas to give them to say, here's an example of using this information in your marketing materials, or when you're talking to somebody, or you're presenting to the Chamber of Commerce or whoever within your community.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we do have a club brochure that we offer that the clubs can personalize, and there's a section on that club brochure where a club can kind of put 5 topics about themselves, or 5 projects that they can highlight, or 5 talking points about their club. And that would seem to be kind of the end goal of what you're talking about, you know, clubs being able to use the information that they get from their monthly reports to put on a brochure like that or something like that. But I don't think we've kind of made the middle step of educating clubs. Hey, here's the information. Now take that information and use it in your marketing brochures themselves. So some good ideas there. I'm happy to share that. And again, I think Brad's still on there, so I'm sure he's always taking in ideas and sharing them with folks. And so we can definitely kind of brainstorm that, you know, amongst the different groups, Greg, and talk about that part of it. But I do think you're right. I think we need to show as much as possible the importance of why, you know, folks need to kind of fill out those reports, or that it's helpful for them to do it. So
I think a lot of our members too don't really realize that a lot of that information is very beneficial to our partnerships area, particularly in terms of letting our partners know what sort of activation is going on in terms of playgrounds built, or the activity with the Office Depot, Office Max, you know, discounts, all those types of things. And so when they get a lot of that information, it can be folded in, and it helps us in terms of just having a good grasp on what the demographic is of our membership. And that's vital information as people are determining whether we're a good partner or not. You know, they want to know what our demographics are. And so if we don't have a real good representative sampling, then we can't really do our best job of connecting the dots.
And it's really just taking that information that you're using at the KI international level and filtering it down to the club so they can do the same type of thing locally to build that partnership or in their community.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's been part of the conversation, is realizing that there's different shareholders of the reporting information. It's not just KI or the club or the district, you know, in a silo that need that information. It's all of us need it for different things. So one last common question we have, and this is something wanted to make sure I kind of highlight is, a lot of times we hear from clubs, what do I need to pay for a new member when I submit them, when I'm adding them? And so that question's been somewhat complicated in the past, but I wanted to give you kind of a preview if you haven't heard it, that paying for a new member, or the amount you pay for a new member, is going to get easier soon. So Kiwanis will be moving to a prorated induction amount for new clubs. It'll be a prorated, gone will be the new member fee, the flat new member fee that most clubs are familiar with, that Kiwanis has had for quite some time. And it will be it'll be replaced by just a prorated version of dues. And so when a new member comes into a club, rather than pay a flat new member fee, they will pay a prorated portion of dues that will be commensurate to the remaining amount of time they have in the administrative year. That'll start October 1st of 2021. And so members added up until that date will still experience the flat new member fee of $50 plus the district's amount up until that time, just as they traditionally do. But then beginning October 1st, new members that come in after the start of the year will pay, again, that prorated amount itself. Again, the new member fee will be eliminated, and Kiwanis International dues and fees, which includes the magazine and insurance, that amount will be prorated along with district dues for individuals that come in. And then the schedule is just based on a 1/12 decrease. And so each month that we go through, a 1/12 of the proration amount will come off of the dues. And so the benefit to that is that obviously, if you have a member that's coming in the latter part of the year, a lot of times as you go farther and farther through the year, that $50 amount has covered less and less time. And so what will happen now is when a club adds a new member to their club in the latter part of the year, let's say July or August or September, that amount will be much smaller because it'll be covering, a lesser amount of time. And so we expect that will be an advantage to clubs that want to try to get members in towards the latter part of the administrative year. It's all part of a dues simplification process. Prorated dues seems to make sense to a lot of people. We've had clubs kind of give us a good portion of feedback over the years of why don't we prorate dues instead of doing a flat fee. That's kind of hard to figure out. And, depending on when a member gets added, sometimes they're at a disadvantage because they're paying two large portions real close together. And so we feel that that's a positive step towards clubs having a better understanding of the fee that's paid for a new member, and it'll also give clubs kind of a benefit towards the latter part of the year. We're going to be sending communication to clubs in August that talks about this in a more robust way. We really are committed to trying to help clubs understand this. I think all of us have been with Kiwanis long enough that we know that sometimes change is hard in the Kiwanis world, but that's why we want to make sure that folks are comfortable with it. And again, member services will be there to help answer any questions about it. So I guess before I close, are there other questions that I can answer for you? General questions about something I've covered, or maybe something totally unrelated? Barb, you've got your hand up there.
Yeah. On the prorated dues, are the clubs supposed to prorate their club dues also?
They're not required to. So,
Okay.
And that's the same as well now. KI will bill a club, a certain amount, a flat amount for a new member fee, but many times the club is collecting something completely different, or they're collecting more because they have their own fees. Maybe they have lunches involved with that. There's a lot of other different fees as part of that. Kiwanis clubs can continue to do that. They can continue to collect on the same schedule that they have. If your club collects quarterly from their members or whatnot, you're still more than welcome to do that. The club just needs to be aware that the amount that they are billed from KI for a new member is going to be different based upon the date that they come in. And so they just want to be cognizant about what they're collecting from those members. But clubs are not required to prorate their dues or prorate the amount that they have. They don't have to change their bylaws as part of that, where it'll just be relative to what KI bills the club for their new member. Does that help?
Yeah, but if we change what we collect because we're sending less to KI, then we do need to change our bylaws. Is that correct?
Sure, that's certainly true. I mean, if a club wants to do that, it's up to their discretion. They're not required to, but you certainly could. And I'm sure that there will be clubs that make that strategic decision. Hey, if we are only collecting $6 in September for a new member, we're not going to charge them a whole bunch more or whatnot. And so that may very well be true. It's just clubs are not required to go along with that portion.
Hey, Bryce.
So,
Bryce, didn't we talk about the fact that based on the standard club bylaws, the clubs may not have to change their bylaws under this new thing? The clubs may not have to?
Correct. I mean, there will be some point probably where we'll see some of the language because of this and some other things as well. Some of the language in the policy documents may change. That's not something that we're going to implement right along with this, because kind of moving the cheese on this one will be a large enough topic as well. But there are some, to Greg's point, in conversations that we've had in the district secretary group, there's some language in the policy, the mandatory policy for that goes along with club bylaws that, while not necessarily in conflict, they're a little confusing in light of the change to prorated dues. And so we'll probably see some of that language change. But I would not say that that's something that anybody needs to be real concerned with within the next year, I think. So, but there's a lot to probably prioritize apart from that. So, but good question. Other questions about that or other things?
Bryce, one thing
Yep.
that might be helpful for people to know, I don't know that we've promoted all that much, the fact that a lot of our materials, particularly membership materials, are now found available through the Kiwanis store. And they think because the word store is in there that we're charging for things that are free. And, but also we've been working over the last couple of years to become a little bit more paperless and environmental friendly and all. And so a lot of times now we're sending out a PDF, which hopefully with that deep discount at Office Max, Office Depot, you can get printed there locally and avoid all the upcharges that we have in terms of shipping. And particularly in these days, the shipping hasn't been real reliable. But I didn't know whether you could talk a little bit about how people can find those materials that they need to print on their own or whatever.
Sure. So Brad alludes to, we do have a whole section of the Kiwanis Family Store that has a literature section, and normally items that don't have a cost are free of shipping. There's maybe one or two exceptions to that, but more often than not, a piece of literature, whether it's the Join Us brochure or whether it's a corporate membership brochure or something along those lines, you can order through the store. Now self-service, and those items will ship out to you at no cost as part of that. The documents that we have chosen not to print for whatever reason, where we've made a strategic decision to kind of provide them online to download as part of that. Again, those lend to kind of the times when member services can help try to find those pieces themselves. If you can't find them on the website, we can certainly help with that. And a lot of times we kind of keep our own kind of encyclopedia of links so that we can find them readily. But it's definitely true. Normally, we try to make a lot of those documents electronic as well, because clubs, want to be able to get them readily, or they want to be able to incorporate them into some digital space that they have rather than print them out specifically.
Yeah,
So.
sometimes they want to customize them too. So, yeah.
Vicky, I'm sorry, I saw your hand up, and then did you raise your hand or were you clapping?
I am raising my hand.
Okay, what can I help?
Thank you. I have been helping with the Kiwanis of Michigan Foundation. And I was told a number of months ago, and I believe it was Renee that I did speak to, about the template for the district foundation bylaws. Is that going to be finished and posted on the website soon?
I don't know. I will be happy to follow up tomorrow to check in with both Diana O'Brien and Pam Norman, who's the Chief Philanthropy Officer for the Children's Fund. They together kind of help are helping direct district foundation documents and things like that. So a lot of the club foundation information is also handled by them, but I can speak with both of them and see where we are and kind of the status of that itself. So I'd
Great.
be happy to
Thank
get an
you.
answer for you on that. Sure.
Thank you so much.
Yep. Other questions or points that that you'd like to raise or ask?
One of the things that I will add on to the use behind the reports is I know that a lot of times, and I'm going back a few years, that information was used when we testified for funding from the US government. So when clubs go and say, well, what do you do with that? Well, that's sometimes how we get our funding, or that information is used in our reports for funding, like for USAID and UNICEF and those types of things. So it is important for clubs to submit that information, and and no one's going to go back and say, okay, you put the number 875 in. Did you really do 875 or did you do 874? Right. But it helps that regard. And it's also very helpful when the officers of the organization with like Rotary and Lions to be able to say, to sit down and say, okay, Kiwanis did this, Rotary did this, Lions did this, Optimist did this. And when you start adding those numbers up, not only the number of service hours, because there is a volunteer service rate that is calculated, but the amount of money that's raised, I don't think people realize the significance of those numbers. So I always encourage the clubs, when I work with them, it's like, submit everything you can, because it's not going to hurt anything. And as I said, no one's going to go back and, well, we think they were less or more or whatever. Every little bit helps.
Yeah,
as a way to promote.
The monthly reports are really the main kind of macro way that the organization itself can see what the Kiwanis experience is for clubs. Obviously, we can look at member rosters and dues paid and determine, this is how many members Kiwanis International has as part of that. And that's valuable information. But to kind of really understand Kiwanis activity and what clubs are experiencing, things like that, really the monthly report is the one piece that really gives us an overview. We may all have our own kind of boots on the ground perspective of it, or we've heard stories or heard of your activities and things like that. But the monthly report kind of gives us that overview that's needed. And Sue's right, exactly used for those different things. So
the same thing with I actually am the club secretary, so I fill it out, but like, what activities are you involved in? So as Bryce mentioned, or Brad mentioned, that information goes back to the partnership team and says, oh, well, everybody's doing backpacks, or everybody's doing literacy programs. And when you think about the partners that we have with Reading is Fundamental or with the Dollar Days, those types of things, because as the staff looks at, well, if 3,000 clubs are doing X project, maybe there's a way for us to get a value for the clubs that we can get a cheaper price for them to buy product. So it all comes full circle in the end, that you may be able to get it less less expensive than what you may do by just going down to your local store. So that information is very valuable. And like I said, I always encourage clubs, put all that together, because there's no way anybody in the Kiwanis International office, any staff member, knows exactly what's happening in every club.
Right.
unless it's Brad.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Hey.
I'd like to add to that. I think that members of their own club don't know either, and this was just borne out. We went to Chillicothe, Missouri, which I'm sure all of you know, the great metropolis of Chillicothe, and we were doing a revitalization, and the club had done that. They'd made a list of the things that they did. Not only did the club members not know all the things they did, but the people in the town, as we went around to talk to them, didn't know that those were Kiwanis sponsored. So it's really valuable as you're trying to get new members, or just let the town know of your impact. The townspeople were quite impressed.
Well, and also to know that you're part of, if clubs can see that data kind of aggregated and put together, and you can see kind of that overall, by KI publishing it and kind of exposing clubs to it, then, that has some cachet, I imagine, if you're out in the community kind of saying, our club is part of a large organization, and this is the great the great good that's being done by this organization in all parts of the world. I'm sure that there are ways to leverage that, for a club's benefit as part of that. And so all of that comes from, the data that's collected bit by bit from clubs reporting in information. And so again, I'm so happy that y'all have kind of highlighted, that, the positive aspect of that, because that's really the point of it all, is to have that, to try to get that information. So, well, I've overextended my time, I think. I think I only had an hour, but I just wanted to say our contact information is up on the screen here. You can contact us by calling the Kiwanis International office and dialing extension 411. Feel free to give us an email at memberservices@kiwanis.org. And then also you have the immediate ability, if you're on the Kiwanis reporting website and you're logged in, there's a little chat bubble that appears right in the lower right-hand corner of most screens. You can click on that and send us a message from there. It's not a 24-hour chat, but it does allow you to kind of, rather than be on a certain page and then have to navigate to your email client or your email program, that allows you the ability to send a message to us right from the page that you're on and kind of ask those questions. But again, we're not fulfilling our responsibility if we don't have members contacting us and we're not providing support and help to members. And so we hope that you will to reach out to us and let us lighten the burden, lighten the load a little bit for you if there are things that we can help with while you do again the important work that has to be done out there. So I appreciate your time. Greg, you have one last thing? Or
Yeah, as a district secretary, one of my things is I want to make sure that all of our members in Michigan we respond and we're a resource for them. So over the years, I've gone from trying to make sure that they have a good experience by handling it myself and shepherding that whole thing through to then calling member services and then getting the answer and getting back to the person with the answer, to today, I hear the issue and I just call and I tell them, just call member services and tell them what's the issue. And I'm confident that they're going to have a good experience with you guys. So, that whole thing has shifted and I appreciate everything you do, because I know that they're going to be treated well and you're going to make me look good and make Kiwanis look good.
Well, that's really what we want to do. Is obviously we're not in it for any kind of exposure for ourselves. We want to make sure that you all are well supported. So I appreciate your time. Thank you all so much. Thought it was a great conversation. And again, let us know how we can help you.
Great. Bryce, I have one last question for you. Do you know
Sure.
how many phone calls and emails you manage in a year?
In a year, I don't know the total number. I usually look at on a day-to-day experience. So in our slower period, it can be as little as 50 calls a day. In peak season, which is usually the latter part of August, September, October, and November, we'll handle anywhere from 90 to 120 or 130 calls a day. And probably, and that's concurrent with emails that we're receiving, and we get probably up to as many as 200 emails a day during the busy period of time. And so, our lives are kind of seasonal, as I'm sure you all are aware. Certain things happen in a very defined period of time during the year. End of year comes, billing comes, different seasons, and so it kind of ebbs and flows as part of that. But that's kind of the low end and the high end as part of that. So I will say we're happy to see that calls and emails have gone back to their pre-pandemic levels, and so that's exciting. Not because we were looking for something to do necessarily. We certainly tried to stay busy, but because it means that clubs are getting out there and they have questions and they need help as part of that. And so it's just an indication that Kiwanis is continuing on strong. And so we're excited to be a part of that.
Well, Bryce, we want to offer our thanks to you and the team. a great team. They've always been a great team and always have been very, very helpful. And sometimes I often call and go, it's Sue Peterson, thinking they're going to hang up the phone because they know I've I've called her. They've put up with me for how many years, but always great, and always appreciate the support that you provide to everyone in Kiwanis. And I think that as we've talked, outside of this, a lot of members don't realize the resources they have at Kiwanis International in member services. And I think that when people get frustrated, if they would just think to call, Kiwanis International, that there are people there that can help them. They don't need to, have that frustration beyond, the fact that it happened at the time, but there are people that are willing to help and willing to provide the support that they need. And like you said, if you can't find the answer, they'll find you an answer.
And cookies always help.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
They do, no
That
matter
keeps
what
us
kind
calm.
they are. So thank you, everyone. We will go ahead and I will turn off our recording here, and we'll make sure that this gets up on the Michigan District of Kiwanis YouTube page so that you can share this with your clubs and your friends around the world. But it's a great way to showcase that, we do have an organization that is fully supported by our staff at Kiwanis International Headquarters in Indianapolis. So thank you, everyone, for being here. We'll see you next week. Thanks, Bryce.
Stay safe.
Thank you. Appreciate it.